Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is in response to an old friend of mine from high school that reached out to me about a week ago with a couple of questions and concerns. Now again, before we get started, a little disclaimer here. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physical therapist. I am a certified yoga instructor, which has given me a reasonable amount of training, but if you are injured, seek professional medical attention before turning to these videos. Do not use these videos in place of medical treatment. If you have an injury to your knee or otherwise, visit the ER, go to the doctor, get treatment, and then take part in these videos when you feel ready. So moving on, Karen, my friend from high school, got a hold of me on Facebook about a week ago, and she said that she is familiar with yoga. She's done yoga before. She knows the yoga asanas or poses. However, she has had some injuries lately that have caused a little bit of grief here. Karen has dealt with multiple sprains in one of her knees, and she's also been dealing with a broken toe. Now, these injuries have mostly healed for her, and now she's dealing with some popping and clicking in that knee, and as well as some just general weakness. She mentioned that holding Adho Mukha Svanasana, down dog, she said that her leg will give out before her arms do, and we know if we've done yoga before that typically it's the shoulders that get tired first in down dog. So for her leg to be giving her grief like that, to be a little weak, it can be frustrating in your practice. So I'm going to show you some yoga poses that you can do, not necessarily in a sequence, but some poses that we can do to help strengthen the knees so that we can build upon our practice at home or at the studio. So if you haven't seen my last video, I recommend that you go and watch it. We talked about peroneal tendonitis in the ankle. And it's just kind of a little tidbit on sprains, how they happen, what goes into the injury itself, and what's happening with those tendons and ligaments as well. Now for Karen, she has sprained her knee. And with any sprain, what's happening is that joint is moving past its normal range of motion, and then in turn the muscles are pulling past what they should, the tendons in turn are pulling past what they should, and the muscle fibers separate a little bit. More severe, the muscle fibers will tear, and you can even completely tear a ligament. That's a lot of times that's what happens when you see professional athletes tear the ACL of the knee. It can be completely separated from the bone if it's severe enough. So depending on the severity of your injury, we might just be dealing with a sprain here that has caused some muscle fibers to tear, and then when the muscle fibers repair themselves, they sort of fuse back together. They're not necessarily what they were before, but muscle fibers are more elastic and it's a little easier for them to come back together. When we heal from our sprains, the muscles that were affected pretty much come back to normal, but then we might be still dealing with some tendonitis or ligament issues. And the reason being is because these ligaments and these tendons are so much more dense, and they're stronger, and they're not as stretchy. So when you pull them past their regular range of motion, it's harder for them to come back together. The best way that I can think of to explain it is if you're a baker. If you're working with bread dough, a lot of times you'll roll it out and it just comes back together. However, when you're making something like a sugar cookie, you roll it out and it stays where it is because that dough is more dense. So thinking of your muscles being bread dough and your ligaments and tendons being sugar cookie dough, that's kind of a good analogy from my mind. There's less elasticity, there's less elastin in these tendons and ligaments, so it takes longer for them to heal. It takes longer for them to return back to normal, and while they're returning back to normal, they can become inflamed, which is where the term tendonitis comes from. That's inflammation of the tendon. So I think in my mind what Karen is dealing with is maybe some tendonitis in that knee or some ligament issues. Now, keeping in mind, I haven't actually seen Karen in person. I'm not quite sure exactly what has happened to sprain the knee or where the popping and clicking is coming from now, but if I had to guess, I'd say maybe that tendon that attaches the patella to the bone here. It's referred to a tendon and a ligament. You'll see it as the patellar tendon and the patellar ligament. So that there may have been affected if she twisted the knee in a way that was past the normal range of motion, and that ligament there might be snapping as we bend the knee back and forth. It could be the ACL, it could be the LCL, or any of the other tendons or ligaments that are attaching the muscles here of the legs around the knee. With that being said, when we think about stretching the knees and strengthening the knees, sometimes people are thinking like strengthening your arms or your quadriceps, but there are no muscles in the knee. The knee is a joint. So we have the joint of the femur here and the tibia coming together. That is the knee joint, is joining these two long bones together with the patella there that sits on top, which is the knee cap. The ligaments attach the top of the leg, the femur bone, to the bottom of the leg, the tibia bone. And there are ligaments that attach the patella as well. Then we have our tendons that are attaching the muscles of the quadricep to these bones and the muscles of the calf to these bones. So the knee is a joint joining the tendons and the ligaments of the muscles of the top of the leg to the bottom of the leg. So we're not working a muscle here in a knee. There aren't any. What we're doing is stretching the muscles of the backs of the legs and maybe even the fronts of the legs in order to release the tendons that they're attached to. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some postures today that are going to help stretch the hamstrings, especially the calves, even the quadriceps, so that we can release those tendons and ligaments. Because once you strengthen those and stretch those, you're in turn going to assist in those tendons and ligaments of the knee. So moving on to some stretches, the first one that comes to my mind is Uttanasana, or forward fold. This is a stretch that stretches the backs of the legs. And so we're really working on those tendons that attach at the back, the ACL and the muscles on the side, or the tendons and the ligaments on the side here. So to find a good forward fold, first we want to find a good mountain pose. So grounding into the feet, making sure that they are hip bone width apart, engaging the muscles of the legs, slightly tilting the pelvis inward, stacking the spine long, engaging the core. Hands can be at our sides, shoulders away from the ears. This is our good foundation. So from here, making sure that our posture is good, that we're standing up tall, that the hips are over the knees, over the ankles. And then what we're going to do to find Uttanasana is maybe bring the hands to the hips first. And then we're going to find length in the spine. Exhale, trying to keep the hips where they are. We're folding forward with a flat back. Maybe you stop halfway at first and feel into this. Or if you're more open, you can exhale to forward fold. Your hands may not reach the mat or the floor right away. Taking a moment here, things will start to loosen up, and then we can inhale, finding a half lift, maybe bringing the hands to the shins. Exhale, thinking of keeping that flat back as we fold. And when you find your edge, you can release the head and soften in. Like I said, this is a stretch for the entire back of the leg here. You'll feel this maybe from your ankles all the way up into the glutes. You can hold this posture for about 1 to 3 minutes. And then when you're finished, maybe bringing the hands to the shins to find your half lift, just to kind of let the blood settle so you don't get dizzy. And then you can bring your hands back to your hips, inhaling, tucking the pelvis, and rising up. Another posture that is going to work those hamstrings and even into the knees a little bit is Warrior One. So I know we do Warrior One a lot here. Virabhadrasana 1, we bring one foot in front, one foot behind. My back foot is at a 45-degree angle. My front foot, toes are facing forward. Hips are square here. My back leg is straight. We bend into that front knee. So I'm working the quadricep here as we lunge here. I can feel my knee working. We want to make sure that knee's tracking over the pinky toe. We should be able to see our big toe here. Knee should be right over the ankle. I can feel my hamstring working on this side as we stretch that leg back, sending that heel towards the mat. Hips are square, inhaling to lift the arms. This is a great posture for the entire lower body. It helps open the hips. It helps with the ankle. It helps with those knees, the calves, and the hamstrings. It's really a great posture. From here, we can find pyramid pose or Parshvottanasana, inhaling to straighten the front leg, and then we're going to exhale, again, hinging forward just like an Uttanasana, bringing the hands to the mat. Now, if you have yoga blocks at home, you can use those blocks to bring the mat to you. If this is this is an intense stretch. So if this is too much on that front knee, we can shorten the stance, or we can even put a microbend in that front knee to alleviate some of that. Just finding a space where you can hold this for a few seconds. And you can do the same thing here, inhaling to find space in the spine, exhaling, folding in. And then we'll release. And you can just bend into that front knee, rising back up to your Warrior One to come out safely. Then you can just bring your hands to your hips and step the left foot up to meet the right. Now there are some seated poses that we can do as well that are going to help with those knees as well. I'm going to make sure that my camera is facing down a little bit. So coming on to your mat or the carpet or wherever you are, we can find Paschimottanasana, which is our seated forward fold, just like in standing, except now we're on the ground. So this would almost be like your half lift if you were standing. And then making sure that we flex through the feet, engaging the muscles of the legs here, and we fold with that flat back again. You can reach for the toes. You don't have to grab onto them. Hands can always be at our sides anywhere or on the shins or the thighs. Just finding a space that feels good to you where you can feel those muscles stretching, feeling those tendons and ligaments working. And again, you can always inhale, finding a half lift. Exhale, seeing if there's room to fold forward. If at any time you experience shaking in the legs, that is a sign that you're hyperextending just a little bit, and it would be safer for you to come out and ease off of that edge just a little bit than to go any further. You can always put a bend in the knees here too. You can even play around with bending and straightening. That might feel good if you're trying to strengthen those tendons and ligaments there. And then we'll inhale to rise. You can hold that pose for really as long as you want. There's no harm in holding that too long. You're not really going to get dizzy or anything because you're already seated. You're already seated. So our next posture is going to be Baddha Konasana, bound angle. This really does start to work into the sides of the knee here because we're stretching into these hip flexors on the inside of the thigh as well. So bringing the heels as close to the midline as you can. You might be good here, and you might feel plenty of a stretch here where you don't want to fold forward because it's going to hurt. If you can fold forward, you're just going to want to inhale, finding, as always, your flat back, exhaling, hinging at the hips. My hip joints are completely compressed here. There's no way for me to physically fold much further because my hip bone, the joint is locked here. There's no more room. So you, depending on how your hips are, you might feel compression here, and that just means that you're more internally rotated in the hip, and this is just how your body's made, and that's okay. You don't have to get your forehead to the mat or to the feet to be good at yoga. And again, you can hold this posture for really as long as you want. As long as there's no pinching or pain, listening to your body, doing whatever feels right to you. And then we'll come up. Another posture that would be good, I think, would be pigeon or recline pigeon, because like I said before, a lot of times issues in the knees can be from the upper leg, the lower leg, or the hips. If your hips are tight, your knees are going to be tight. If your hamstrings are tight, your knees are probably going to be tight. If your calves are tight, guess what? Your knees are probably going to be tight. So pigeon is a great hip opener. So traditional pigeon, we are prone on the mat. We walk this knee back so we're not directly on the joint, and we bring that front knee right under or behind the wrist. Inhaling, finding that flat back, exhaling, folding forward. Now, this may be too much on this back knee if it's injured. The hips may not be open enough to do this. So what you can do is find supine pigeon. Laying on your back, taking your ankle to the top of your thigh, and you can just bring your hands to your sides, and you can lift that leg up so that you're flexing both the feet here, and you can just add some gentle pressure with the knee. Or you can take those hands to the back of the hamstring if that feels good, or bringing that shin closer to you, you can grab onto the shin. Either way, you're going to get the same stretch, and you're probably going to feel it in your knee. This is a great one. This is something you could do every night before bed, or once you get into bed, or while you're watching TV. And you can hold that for, I would say, no more than 4 minutes each side. Most people hold that for about 3. So if you're just starting out and that knee is still a little injured, then maybe just go for 1 to 2 minutes to start out until we stretch and strengthen those muscles and tendons and ligaments. So Karen, I really hope this video helped with those knee issues. If you have any other suggestions, or if any of you are dealing with any injuries or parts of the body that you may want to tone or strengthen or work on, or if you want a specific sequence that builds shoulder strength or core strength or leg strength, let me know in the comments. I am happy to make these videos for all of you. I love doing them. Just let me know in the comments what you're looking for, or if you add me on Facebook, you can always message me or comment on any of my things there. You can follow me on Instagram at yogi.blair, and I will be sure to respond to any private messages or any comments there as well. My website is linked in my YouTube channel as well. Feel free to visit that to see what I offer. I do go back and forth between Ohio and Indiana, so if you're looking for an event or anything of that nature, bachelorette parties, showers, friends night in, some yoga is a great way to get together and just kind of have a fun night with your friends. I do yoga classes for businesses, for employees. I do private yoga lessons, and you can also find my schedule for my group classes that I teach at different facilities on my website there. Please continue to subscribe and to share these videos. I really appreciate every subscription. I really appreciate everybody that took time to make sure to just support me and what I'm doing here. I know all I do is talk about and post about yoga, but this is one of my passions in life, and I appreciate everybody for being there to support me. So thank you all so much. I hope you found this video informational, and I hope everybody has a great day. Loka samasta sukhi no bhavantu. I wish happiness and freedom to all living things, and may the words, thoughts, and actions of my own life contribute in some way to happiness and freedom for all. Friends, thank you so much for joining me. Namaste.